Hello everybody, I have a recipe to share with you today. We are going to be making vegetable soup and serving it in a pumpkin. Now I have two versions of this recipe, a vegan and a non-vegan version, so you can check the description box for more information. Today we're going to be using 2 chickens, but usually 1 is sufficient for a family. And we're going to put it in a large pot of water, and we're going to season it with some salt, and we're going to let it come to a simmer and cook for about an hour or so. Now I'm going to put this aside and work on the rest of the recipe, and we're going to use 1 small to medium pumpkin. I'm just going to cut the top off in a zigzag fashion just to give it a little more decoration. And next we need to remove all the seeds and the fibers from the interior of the pumpkin, and I've got my little girl helping me with this. And once most of the stuff is out, I can take this grapefruit spoon and kind of just scrape the rest of the inside just to get those remaining fibers out. Next, we want to put it on a roasting pan. We're going to add a little bit of salt and olive oil to the inside of the pumpkin. And then I'm just going to move the pumpkin around just so that it coats the interior. And then we're going to add a little bit more olive oil to the outside of the pumpkin. I'm just going to spread this all over the pumpkin, and that's about it. We're going to stick it in the oven at 450 degrees, and we're going to bake it for about 25 minutes. I'm also using 2 onions, and again, I'm going to dice these up into small pieces. And we want to get these on the stove and just kind of saute them while we cut up the rest of the vegetables. So I'm going to stick these onto a large pan. I'm going to drizzle a little bit of oil onto this, and I'm also going to season it with a little bit of salt. So now on to the vegetables. We have about 4 or 5 medium potatoes, and I'm going to keep those kitchen scraps for the compost pile. And we just want to peel them and dice them up into small pieces. We also have a bag of carrots, and again, we're just going to chop those, as well as 1 bunch of celery. And I'm going to add the carrots to it next because they are the ones that take the longest to cook, and just want to get those kind of softened and sauteed. It just makes it nicer in the soup if you can saute the vegetables first, but you can skip this whole part of the process and just stick all the vegetables directly into your chicken broth. To this, we're going to add the celery. And again, we're just going to saute it a little bit, and I'm waiting about 3 or 4 minutes between adding each of these vegetables so that the carrots have a little bit more time, and so the celery has a little bit more time. And lastly, I'm going to add the potatoes because they're the softest and they really don't need that much time. And just going to saute it a little bit more before we check on the pumpkin and see how it's doing. So about 25 to 35 minutes later, it's done. Now you don't want to overcook this, otherwise it won't hold up well to the soup. Next, we want to check on the chicken, and if the leg comes off that easily, it's done. So I'm just going to remove both these chickens from this wonderful broth that we've made. And again, you could omit this entirely and just use a vegetable broth. So I'm going to add all of these vegetables to this broth now while I give the chicken some time to cool down. I'm also going to add a bag of organic corn and a bag of organic peas. We're also going to add our spices at this time. So I'm going to add about a teaspoon each of these spices. I've got some cayenne pepper, which you can omit if you'd like, although it really isn't that spicy when it's only a teaspoon. And then a teaspoon of black pepper and parsley. I'm just going to stir this up, and at this point the chicken is cool enough for me to remove from the bone. So I'm going to go ahead and take the chicken off of that and stick it into the pot with all the other vegetables. And since the chicken was already cooked, it doesn't need long. You just need to be able to reincorporate that into the soup. And now it's time to fill our pumpkin with the soup. It's not going to hold very much. I think it just makes an amazing centerpiece to any table. And put the lid back on, and that's about it. It makes a really dramatic centerpiece. And the soup is really delicious. And another perk is that if you don't like pumpkin, don't worry, it doesn't taste like pumpkin. But if you do like pumpkin, even better, because you can scrape off the pumpkin from the inside and enjoy it along with your soup. This is a really wonderful fall recipe, and it goes along perfectly with our Colonial Times unit study, and you can see those videos by clicking on the screen.